Well, I kind of remember, like, people back then were basically barbarians.
Yeah.
1920s people?
Bro, back then it was
World War One, bro.
Back then, for a stand-up comedian, like when I found out was, imagine you do a gig, $200 back then, right? And the promoter says, I'm not gonna, the gangsters, I'm not gonna pay you. And if you don't get paid, and then he'll call the cops. You have three vagrants walking around downtown, and then you're three comedians walking around town with no hotel, no pay, and they're gonna pick you up for being a hobo now.
Yeah, you could get stiffed, for sure.
But that was back then, bro.
Yeah.
That was a hard time. Imagine from then to now.
Well, I think there's probably still a lot of shit gigs like that out there for a lot of guys that are coming up. But it's just now there's more real gigs.
Yeah, better gigs.
Well, it's comedy's more accessible, because of YouTube and everything. Comedy's just it's everywhere. Like your special. Oh, tell everybody.
Oh, I have a special right now.
What a segue.
Yeah, I have a special right now on Netflix, Raging Fool. We shot it at the Crest Theater in Sacramento, 2 shows. My wife directed it and executive produced. She executive produced all my specials. But we shot it with our own money, and we paid everybody, and then we sold it to Netflix. We made like a 2-year deal.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we own it.
You look great. I love the tracksuit.
Yes, because I'm Raging Fool, because a Raging Bull.
I love the tracksuit. It's dope.
Because I was watching that movie, Raging Bull.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that when Jake LaMotta had nothing left to do in his life, he had nothing how to make money.
Right.
He said, you know what? I'm going to be a comedian. So, and I thought like, wow. He had nothing else to do with his life, so he figured out that I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Because that was the last thing, and then for us, it's like the first thing.
Well, that happens with actors sometimes, too. When their careers kind of dwindle, they start doing stand-up. That happens. And
he had like, you saw the movie, right, Raging Bull, when he's doing stand-up. And he's at a bar called Jimmy's Corner Bar, and that bar's still there.
Stanhope was friends with him.
Really?
Yeah, because that guy lived down in Arizona where Stanhope lives.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, he's like got photos of him hanging out over his house and shit. Yeah. Yeah, Jake LaMotta was Stanhope's boy. And that's a real story, man. Jake LaMotta was a character.
Yeah.
That was a wild fella. A wild, crazy fella. And goddamn, Robert De Niro fucking nailed it.
Nailed it, huh?
Nailed it. I mean, nailed it. Like, he looked like an animal when he was Jake LaMotta, like the younger Jake LaMotta.
Did you fuck my wife?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. He was so scary. He was so scary because he was just out of his fucking mind and so dangerous. And it was based on a real guy, man. I mean, the movie is real close to how that guy was, Jake LaMotta, when he was in his prime. He was a fucking monster, man.
I like when he looks at his hands, and then he goes, he don't like his hands because they're not big, I guess. He goes, I can never be a heavyweight.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
That's crazy. That's a different kind of human, man. And back then, there was a lot of people like that. You got to go back and put your mind into what it must have been like to be Jake LaMotta growing up and like what. So what year was Jake in his prime? Well, what year did he fight Sugar Ray Robinson? Let's ask that. Jake LaMotta versus Sugar Ray Robinson.
62, 59, 42.
42. Okay. Madison Square Garden, 1942. So you got to imagine.
Wow.
You got to just put your mind into the type of people that lived back then. I mean, like cars were new. Sewage was new. Like people had been coming over in boats. Criminals were everywhere. Crime was everywhere. Organized crime was the rule of the law in all the Italian communities, the Irish communities. That was the thing.
42, wow.
Yeah. This was just the United States. It's like, you ever watch that movie, Gangs of New York?
Yes.
Fucking great movie, right? That's a fucking great movie. And probably pretty accurate.
Yes.
Like roughly pretty accurate the way life was back then.
Some of those gangsters that were in that movie were actually real people.
I believe it.
Like that woman in that movie, I think you talked about it. The one they used to collect ears and put them in a jar.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was an actual a real person. She had a bar where people would just have a jar full of pickled ears and noses from previous fights.
Oh my God. Jesus.
And they'll have fights in the back with a mongoose fighting a dog.
Oh my God. Gangs of New York, man. That movie is so, because we don't think of New York that way. You think of New York as like New York City. Well, it was kind of dangerous in the 70s. Then, Giuliani cleaned it up. And then, it's pretty commercialized in a lot of ways, but still a beautiful city. But New York, during the time of that, whenever that film was supposed to represent, was a wild, crazy, almost like Wild West type place. Like we think of those kind of scenes when you think of a Wild West movie, right? Right, you think
the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, you think of people getting stabbed and shot, but that was happening over there too. It's not like it never happened on the East Coast and they only did it on the West Coast.
On people.
It was happening in the whole country. And they had just gotten. I mean, these people had just gotten done with a fucking civil war, right?
Yeah.
Because back then, you got to think 1940. You go to the 1860s to the 1940s. That's not that much time.
Nah.
That's pretty quick. That's 80 years.
80 years.
A lot of those fuckers are still alive.
Still alive.
Yeah.
Same mentality, same craziness.
And then you got more immigrants coming in on boats. No YouTube to watch, just a women of prayer. Someone told them to come.
I always think about that, man. Like when
Jesus.
Her.
She supposedly was real. Yeah.
She was Maggie, Hellcat Maggie.
Jesus Christ.
I think about when the Irish are coming in at the same time as when that movie is happening. Oof. And they told them, you want a free meal? You want to fight for your country? And they give them a uniform, and their families go off to New York, and they go off to fight the South.
Jesus Christ.
Just imagine coming out of the boat and someone just hands you a gun and a piece of bread and goes, go fight for America.